When we think of VTubers, Hololive and Niji-sanji undoubtedly come to mind as the ones that pioneered VTuber culture to what it is today. But there is actually a Japanese vsinger who made history in the ways not a single other person in the world can claim they have. KAF, the singing prodigy, the very first VTuber in history that would stand on Japan's most prestigious stage as the star of her own concert at the mere age of 18, paving the way for Hoshimachi Suisei's own dream. This is how she did it. KAF as a kid first fell in love with Honeyworks, a huge music creation group that collabs with many vocalists, and eventually loved Saya, someone who sang official Honeyworks songs on Nico Nico, a Japanese video site. This passion for Japanese music would naturally extend to Vocaloid to eventually Radwimps from the movie Kimi no Na wa. Oh, she's also an Idol fan because someone in her family influenced her. At the early age of 13, this love for music would bring her to post her very first covers to some karaoke app that I, for the love of God, cannot find the identity of. Whether it was pure talent, luck, or both, we'll never know. But her covers on the karaoke app quickly caught the attention of producer Pied Piper of Kamitsubaki Studio. Due to her very young age and having lived far from the city, Pied Piper's attempts at reaching out would take a while, but would alas successfully scout KAF out the next year. At just 14 years old, in middle school, the stage for KAF's success was meticulously set. Her very first recording session would tell Pied Piper everything he needed to know. This was the correct choice. Pied Piper stated that it wasn't that she was particularly good at singing or anything. She didn't have any professional technique, but her voice had that special quality that felt so artistic. Like, I see her potential. I love her voice even though it's not professionally trained yet, kind of thing. Pied Piper's instincts would prove to be right, as even managers and engineers at the recording studio were simply stunned at this 14-year-old singing the very first time she was invited. She was a prodigy. With this miraculous collaboration in hand, KAF opened her YouTube channel in 2018 October and saw immediate success. All her covers would get hundreds of thousands of views. Her first original song, Ito, would see a top 3 in J-pop and top 9 overall in the iTunes ranking. I mean, you would know something is special when most of their 10 oldest videos all have millions of views. She was then proceeded to be invited to Count Zero, a VR New Year's countdown event featuring VTuber legends such as Kizuna Ai, which gave her crazy exposure and an explosion in growth. Remember, her channel has been open for 2.5 months at this point. She is 14 years old. I mean, 2 months later, this viral singer literally had to take a short hiatus to study for her high school entrance exams. Not even university. High school entrance exams. That's crazy. She quickly came back a month and a half later, and a legendary collaboration that would change everything was about to come. Under the same production company as her was renowned music creator Kanzaki Iori. You may know him as the guy who created the viral Hated by Life itself. Yes, Mafu Mafu did not make that song. He covered it. As essentially co-workers, a deal was made. Kanzaki Iori would create KAF songs for the foreseeable future. For the next few months, singles would release like bullets out of a machine gun. And not even a year after her debut, KAF put up a crowdfunding for her first potential live, needing 5 million yen to cover costs. The people would respond with 40 million. Thus, her first live would successfully go through in 2019 August at Liquid Room, a venue with about a 1,000 person capacity. In the very first year of her career, she was already performing on stages, getting invited to music festivals, having big collaborations with huge companies, and even an exhibition at a huge department store brand, Parco. But as we enter the era of Corona, the pandemic would prove to be somehow both a curse and a blessing at the same time. The years of Corona unfortunately meant that at the very start of her music career, just after her first live, in-person concerts would cease to exist and everything would become online. This would be frustrating for any rising musician passionate about their performances. On the other hand, she was a VTuber, and the era of quarantine was, well, the era of VTubers. It somehow seemed like a match made in heaven. Both KAF and Kanzaki Iori kept pumping out content like no tomorrow, and KAF grew exponentially. Over the next 2 years, her high school years, she did many online lives, some even streamed completely for free on YouTube. The grind did not stop. Look at her music upload frequency. These 2 years of quarantine admittedly didn't give her a lot of chances for more in-person collaborations and more unique forms of content as she was trapped at home, but it did certainly grow her online presence. In 2021 June, when in-person concerts were somewhat starting to be allowed in Japan again, KAF once again crowdfunded for the cost of her second in-person live at a venue several times larger than her first, with a grand total of 80 million yen raised, almost 3 times the original designated goal. But this would be nothing compared to how she would make history in 2022. 2022 started off with a very happy high school graduation with a special online live to commemorate. But right after came the announcement. KAF's third in-person live. Where would it be? How much has she grown in these years? KAF third one-man live in Nihon Budokan, the most prestigious stage in the entire Japan. What you need to understand is, the Budokan is literally the dream stage for every single vsinger, artist, musician in Japan. You can't pay to perform there, you have to be invited. It is the ultimate status of I've made it. KAF would cement herself as the first VTuber in history before any Hololive, Nijisanji or Kizuna Ai to perform on this legendary stage. Of all the VTubers that dream of this moment, KAF was the first one to do it. She had made history. It felt like a symbol, like a sort of proof that yes, even a VTuber can stand on that stage. To my knowledge, in the 2 years since then, the only other VTuber that has ever gotten a Budokan live, now well, going to get, is Suisei. This should tell you the scale of this announcement, how important this is in VTuber history, and how insane KAF is to do this at 18 years old. She had just graduated high school. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, KAF's career skyrocketed, and as headlines were made everywhere, collaborations and people came flocking in like pigeons to a crumb of bread. KAF was chosen to have her voice as a sample for a voice synthesizer, Synthesizer V. She was invited to events, radios, as a guest on other VTubers, and by other VTubers, I mean Kizuna Ai, Calliope Mori, Suisei, the biggest names, lives. She started getting anime songs, being a part of Tokyo Sinks, Black Clover, and the ending song of Urusei Yatsura, which would garner over 100 million plays. She became one of the few non-Hololive, non-Nijisanji members to break the 1 million subscriber count on YouTube. She was a part of the official YouTube's Music Weekend and promoted on New York City's Times Square. She'd be featured in 4base Japan. Yes, that 4base, the most influential people 4base. She was now looked up to as a top V-singer. Do you see how crazy the momentum is? This hype would carry on all the way to 2024 with lives and new originals, covers constantly being pushed out. Yet amongst this wave of hype came a slightly somber piece of news. Kanzaki Iori, KAF's main composer for the past years, would be leaving their production company, Kamitsubaki Studio. And due to this, after making one last album for KAF, their long-time collaboration would come to an end, with the company now scouring for other composers, the first one since then being produced by Jason Park. KAF's career is nowhere near over though. At 20 years old now, this is just the beginning of a legend, not the end of one, as she continues to look at great heights. Yet through this entire story, there is but one question. Why? Why her? Why KAF? It almost sounds like everything was given to her on a silver platter, like nothing went wrong. Who makes history as an artist like that at 18 after being randomly scouted? I mean, for God's sake, there was literally a controversy in her first few months where people were mindlessly speculating like, why is she getting so many views? Did they buy views? Did they pull some strings on YouTube? It is undeniable that luck played a factor, especially with how Pied Piper found her on some karaoke app. Their company literally replied on Twitter saying, bro, we did pay for some advertising, but we're also confused why it got so many views. That's crazy. I've never heard of someone having to defend their high view count. It's also kind of sad though. Like, you're really gonna hate online just because you're jealous of a 14-year-old? However, I don't think it's right to just chalk it up to luck. I think think a quick look into her discography will explain a lot. For the initial boom, as Pied Piper said, hearing her voice should be enough to tell you that it is very unique. There is no way you can tell this is a 14-year-old. She has that soft, shaky in a good way voice that makes her singing feel so emotional. It hits the soul, especially with, well, the Kanzaki Iori cooking specialty, depression. But past that, her and Kanzaki's music design is very artistic. You see, they designed albums in a way that forms a story. For example, her first EP was titled Flower and Heart, while the second one is Flower and Answer, with the song Answer directly calling back to and answering the questions posed in the first EP. By using this approach, they managed to somehow build a story into music, and I think this storytelling element elevates it to an experience you can't really find elsewhere. It's like watching a show but with music. But most of all, I really do think not enough credit is given to the man, the myth, the legend, Pied Piper. I'm not just talking about how he scouted KAF. From the very beginning, it's clear that he had very good production choices in how KAF's image should be, maintaining production quality, and he himself alone was responsible for directing a lot of her works. But even past being a good producer, from reading the interviews, it almost to me feels like he was a second father to her. See, in her middle and high school years, KAF obviously had that crazy boom, but Pied Piper constantly stated the importance of KAF also living a normal high school life. I quote, "Her artist activities should never get in the way of her school life. There are important things you can only experience in your high school life, and if it would have to be sacrificed, then I would rather her stop her artist activities." Her producer said this. Producer, the person making money from her success. KAF also seems to suffer a bit of imposter syndrome, as in the feeling of, do I really deserve this success? Did I really do anything? And the man constantly publicly states that yes, KAF alone is the core of this entire production and the biggest contributor, so he keeps saying she should hold more confidence in herself. The man constantly states how much of KAF's success is just due to her own talent, how he didn't really do anything, and how he just wants to draw all the potential he can out of her. I just think it's really wholesome how much he cares, and well, it tells. After so many years, KAF is still under the same company. Call it a miracle, call it talent. There will always be jealous people out there hating on others' success. But when you make history like this, when you set a precedent, no matter how and why you did it, it will remain an undisputable fact that you made a legacy come to life, a torch that lights up the pathway for many to come.